Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started. At 68, one man came to see me, living a life that many would consider healthy. No smoking, no history of heart disease in his family, and he ate what he thought was a nutritious diet every day. But when we took a look at his arteries, we saw something shocking. They looked like the arteries of someone 23 years older. They were inflamed, stiff, and worn down, conditions I usually associate with people who have spent decades making poor health choices. After a lengthy conversation, we found the cause wasn't his genetics, stress levels, or weight. It was how he reheated his dinner every single night. This is something most people never think about, but it could be silently damaging your body. I'm here to talk to you about a subject many doctors won't bring up at your annual checkup. After 60, your body begins playing a different game. The habits you had in your younger years, habits that you thought were safe, can start to take a toll. Let's explore 5 common foods that become genuinely dangerous when reheated. They're not just hard on your digestion, they can trigger a chain reaction that quietly damages your arteries and raises your risk of serious illness. And here's the thing, most people don't realize this until it's too late. Before we dive into the specifics of these 5 foods, I want to explain a little about what happens to your body after 60. When you were younger, say in your 30s or 40s, your body was a master at handling minor damage. Free radicals, low-grade toxins, and inflammation were all neutralized effectively by your cells without you even feeling it. But after 60, that system begins to slow down. Your liver doesn't process toxins as quickly, your immune response becomes less precise, and your arteries lose some of their elasticity. Even your DNA repair mechanisms start to falter. That doesn't mean you're fragile, far from it, but the margin for error becomes much smaller. What might have been harmless in your 40s is now a much bigger problem at 65 or 70. Here's where chronic inflammation comes into play. Inflammation is your body's response to injury or infection. It's normal and healthy in the short term. You cut your finger, inflammation helps the wound heal. You catch a cold, inflammation fights off the virus. That's all good. But when inflammation becomes chronic, low-grade, slow-burning, and constant, that's when things go wrong. Chronic inflammation doesn't just damage one part of your body, it spreads throughout your system. It can silently attack your arteries, creating an environment where abnormal cell growth is more likely. And I've seen the results of that more times than I care to admit. The foods we're about to talk about all have one thing in common. When reheated, they create compounds that your body struggles to neutralize, especially after the age of 60. Day after day, meal after meal, those compounds build up inside your system, quietly accelerating damage. Let's start with the one that's probably sitting in your kitchen right now, fried food. French fries, fried chicken, or anything cooked in vegetable oil, sunflower, corn, or soybean oil. You already know this isn't the healthiest choice, but you might not realize just how dangerous it becomes when reheated. It's not just the first time you eat fried food that's problematic. The real danger comes when you reheat it. You see, when vegetable oils are reheated, they undergo a chemical breakdown, the oil oxidizes, and in that process, it releases compounds called aldehydes. These compounds are found in cigarette smoke, which might sound dramatic, but it's just the chemistry at work here. Aldehydes do a lot of damage to your body. First, they attack your arteries. They trigger oxidative stress, which damages the cells lining your blood vessels. Over time, this leads to inflammation, thickening, and stiffening of your arterial walls. For someone over 60 whose arteries are already losing elasticity, this can be a serious problem. But that's not all. Aldehydes are also free radicals, and free radicals cause DNA damage. Most of the time, your body repairs this damage, but after 60, that repair process slows down. Some of the mutations slip through the cracks, and when they accumulate in the wrong place, that's when serious cellular illness begins. You don't have to stop eating fried food altogether, but reheating it, especially in the microwave or with more oil, is where the damage really adds up. If you have leftover fried food, it's safer to reheat it in the oven or an air fryer at a moderate temperature with no added oil, or better yet, just eat it cold. By now, you might be thinking that reheating food isn't such a big deal, but the truth is, it can have a profound effect on your health, especially as you age. Stay with me, because in the next, I'll reveal even more foods you might want to reconsider reheating. Trust me, once you know what I'm about to share, you'll look at your leftovers in a whole new way. Now, let's move on to something you might not expect: leafy greens. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard. These are some of the healthiest foods you can eat. But what happens when you cook them and then reheat them? You might think you're doing something good for your body by having a nutritious side of greens, but the reality is a little more complicated. When leafy greens are raw, they contain nitrates, which are natural compounds that your body processes without much trouble. But when you cook them and let them sit, bacteria can begin converting those nitrates into nitrites. Now, this process isn't a huge concern if you're storing the greens properly, but if they sit at room temperature too long or aren't stored in the fridge soon enough, the conversion happens faster. And here's the big problem. When you reheat these greens, the nitrites react with proteins in the food, forming nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are a big deal. The World Health Organization classifies them as probable human carcinogens, and they've been linked to stomach, esophageal, and colon cancers. But that's not the only issue. Nitrosamines also trigger vascular inflammation, which damages the endothelium, the lining of your blood vessels. When this lining is inflamed, your arteries lose their ability to regulate blood flow properly. This makes blood pressure more difficult to control and increases the risk of clots. For someone over 60, having both cancer risk and cardiovascular inflammation at the same time is a real concern. It's frustrating because you're doing the right thing by cooking these greens in the first place. You're trying to make a healthy choice, only to find out that reheating them could be causing more harm than good. So what's the simple fix? It's pretty straightforward. Cook only as much leafy greens as you can eat in one sitting. If you have leftovers, don't reheat them. Instead, throw them into a salad or a grain bowl. And here's another tip. Make sure to store cooked greens in the fridge within 30 minutes of cooling them down. Even leaving them at room temperature for an hour can speed up the nitrate conversion process. I know it seems like a lot to keep track of, but these simple changes can have a significant impact on your health. It's all about understanding how food behaves when you reheat it and making small adjustments to protect your body. And it's not just greens that can pose a problem. The next food on our list might surprise you because it seems harmless enough: rice. Reheated rice is responsible for more foodborne illnesses than nearly any other staple food in the world. You might wonder why rice would be dangerous. It's such a simple, neutral food after all. But here's the problem. When you cook rice, most bacteria are killed. But one particular bacterium, Bacillus cereus, plays by different rules. Its spores survive boiling and cooking, going dormant in the heat. Then once the rice cools, those spores wake up and multiply rapidly. You might think that reheating the rice would kill the bacteria, and while it doesn't get rid of the toxins that bacteria have already produced. Bacillus cereus releases heat-resistant toxins as it multiplies, and reheating the rice doesn't destroy them. In the short term, this can lead to nausea, vomiting, and discomfort, which is unpleasant but usually survivable. But over time, repeated exposure to these toxins, especially if you're eating reheated rice multiple times a week, can cause chronic intestinal inflammation. The real danger is not just the acute symptoms, it's the long-term effect on your gut. Your gut and heart are connected through several pathways, and inflammatory signals travel through your bloodstream. Changes in your gut bacteria directly affect cholesterol metabolism and blood pressure regulation. So even though reheated rice might seem harmless, it's causing damage in ways you might not notice right away. The good news is that there's a simple fix to avoid the risks of reheated rice. After cooking, cool it rapidly and refrigerate it within 1 hour. Store it no more than 24 hours, and when you reheat it, do it only once. If you need to cook rice in bulk, try to cook smaller portions and avoid reheating it multiple times. This simple practice can significantly reduce the risk of bacterial growth and the associated toxins. Now let's talk about chicken. It's one of the most popular proteins for people over 60. Lean, versatile, and easy to prepare in bulk for the week. However, when it comes to reheating, chicken and microwaves don't mix well. Most people have no idea just how dangerous this combination can be, especially when it comes to food safety. Microwaves work by exciting water molecules in the food, but they don't heat food evenly. This uneven heating creates cold zones in the food, areas where the temperature doesn't reach the safe level required to kill harmful bacteria. These cold zones can be difficult to see because the outer part of the chicken may look perfectly hot, but the inside could be undercooked. And this is where dangerous bacteria like Salmonella, Campylobacter, and Listeria can thrive. Campylobacter can survive even at temperatures that kill most other pathogens, and Listeria is particularly concerning for people over 60, as immunity weakens with age. One episode of food poisoning might just lead to a very bad day, painful, exhausting, and unpleasant. But the real danger lies in the pattern of repeated low-level bacterial exposure. Each time your immune system fights off these bacteria, it releases inflammatory molecules called cytokines into your bloodstream. While this may not seem like a big deal in the moment, repeated exposure to these low levels of bacteria can cause systemic inflammation. This chronic, low-grade inflammation slowly damages your arteries, contributes to plaque formation, and makes your blood more prone to clotting. I've seen this result in regular cases, and it often leads to slow, progressive arterial damage. So, what should you do with leftover chicken? Avoid the microwave. It's your worst option. Instead, reheat chicken in the oven at a moderate temperature with foil, or eat it cold. If you must use the microwave, make sure to cut the chicken into small pieces before reheating. Let it rest for at least 2 full minutes after heating to ensure that any cold spots have had a chance to warm up properly. This simple step will significantly reduce the risk of bacterial contamination. Now, we're almost at the end of our list, but there's one more food that often gets overlooked: potatoes. Potatoes might seem like one of the safest foods on this list, but the danger lies not just in reheating them, but in the chemical processes that happen inside the potato when it's reheated. Let's break this down. When starchy foods like potatoes are cooked at high temperatures, a chemical reaction occurs between the sugars and an amino acid, resulting in a compound called acrylamide. Acrylamide is a substance that the International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies as a probable human carcinogen, linked to kidney and other cancers. Here's the key point. When you reheat a potato, more acrylamide forms on top of what was already created during the initial cooking. So, the more you reheat potatoes, the more acrylamide you're exposed to. But that's not the only issue with reheating potatoes. When you cook potatoes and let them cool, they develop something called resistant starch. This type of starch acts like dietary fiber, feeding healthy gut bacteria and slowing the release of glucose into your bloodstream. This is great because it helps maintain stable blood sugar levels. However, when you reheat the potatoes, the resistant starch turns back into regular starch, which digests rapidly. This leads to a sharp spike in blood sugar levels, triggering a surge of insulin from your pancreas to compensate. For someone over 60, especially if you have any level of insulin resistance, this can be particularly damaging. These sharp blood sugar fluctuations cause oxidative stress in your blood vessel walls, accelerating arterial stiffening and contributing to cardiovascular disease. So reheating potatoes is not only exposing you to a carcinogen, but it's also stressing your heart and arteries at the same time. The fix is simple: eat potatoes cold whenever possible. Cold potato salad with olive oil and herbs is a great option, as the resistant starch stays intact, helping to maintain stable blood sugar. If you must eat them warm, cook fresh potatoes with low heat for a short amount of time and without adding extra oil. By making these small changes, you'll avoid the silent double threat that reheated potatoes pose to your heart and overall health. And that's the key takeaway from all these foods. Timing and temperature matter more than you might think. Now that we've explored the specific risks of these foods, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. We've been talking about 5 individual foods, but there's a critical underlying pattern that ties them all together: chronic inflammation. The damage caused by reheating these foods doesn't happen in isolation. It builds up over time, creating a steady, low-level inflammatory response in your body that accelerates aging and increases the risk of heart disease and other serious conditions. As someone who spent over 30 years in surgery, I've seen firsthand how these seemingly small choices compound over time. A person doesn't end up on the operating table because of one bad meal. They end up there because of a long history of choices that silently harmed their body. Each of these foods, fried items, leafy greens, rice, chicken, and potatoes, may seem harmless when eaten once in a while, but when reheated regularly, they create a pattern of inflammation that's hard for your body to manage, especially after 60. Your arteries start to show microscopic damage, which your immune system tries to repair. But over time, these repairs aren't as efficient as they once were. Plaque builds up, blood pressure rises, and your heart has to work harder. And with constant oxidative stress, mutations can slip through the cracks, leading to cellular issues and potential diseases. This is why simple changes in your kitchen habits can make such a huge difference. By being mindful of how you handle your food, you can reduce inflammation and protect your heart. To make this as practical as possible, let's go over the 5 simple swaps you can make in your kitchen today. These are not drastic changes, but small shifts that can have a significant impact on your health. Let's start with fried foods. Instead of reheating them in the microwave, use an oven or air fryer at a moderate temperature. If you can, eat them cold. This helps prevent further oxidation of the oils, reducing the harmful aldehydes that can damage your arteries, and of course, avoid adding extra oil when reheating. For leafy greens, the solution is simple. Cook only what you'll eat in one sitting. If you have leftovers, don't reheat them. Use them cold in salads or grain bowls. Remember to refrigerate them within 30 minutes of cooling, as this will slow down the conversion of nitrates to nitrites. Rice is another one that requires a little attention. Cool it rapidly after cooking and refrigerate it within 1 hour. Don't store it for more than 24 hours, and when reheating, do it just once. This will help prevent the growth of bacteria and the production of harmful toxins. If you're cooking rice in bulk, try cooking smaller portions to avoid the need for reheating. Chicken, of course, should be avoided in the microwave. Reheat it in the oven at a moderate temperature, or eat it cold. If you must use the microwave, cut the chicken into small pieces and let it rest for 2 full minutes after heating to ensure even warming throughout. Finally, for potatoes, embrace the cold. A cold potato salad made with olive oil and lemon is a great option, as it preserves the resistant starch and helps maintain stable blood sugar levels. These 5 swaps are simple, but they can significantly reduce your risk of chronic inflammation and heart disease as you age. The best part is that they don't require you to stop eating the foods you love. They just require you to think differently about how you handle them. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more practical health tips. Take care of your heart, take care of yourself, and remember, your kitchen is one of the most powerful tools in your health arsenal. Thanks for watching. Take care.